Welcome to the fifth live show of 2023 for the Literally Dead Book Club. We're halfway through the fourth year of the Literally Dead Book Club, which just seems kind of crazy. This month we read The Devotion of Suspect X by Kigo Higashino.
Oh my god, I'm the odd one out.
No, that's good because I feel like when I saw people posting on Instagram, it was a lot of this cover. It was a lot of the pure red cover. And I didn't see a lot of this one, but I feel like this one's really common.
Yeah, I don't like it though. I never like UK covers though, so it's just me. I have beef with UK covers in general.
Is that the movie cover or just the UK cover?
I think it's just the UK one. It was the only one I could find.
Yeah, movie cover.
Oh, okay. I assumed it was a movie cover because that's the only time I really see people.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for popping in here. I'm going to ask for your emojis. If you read it, give me a heart. If you didn't read it, you can give me a thumbs down. If you DNF'd it, a little skull. I don't feel like that many people DNF'd it, but sometimes I'm wrong. Don't give us your ratings quite yet because we'll get into that. We're also going to keep it spoiler-free for just a minute. But first, I would love to have my co-hosts introduce themselves. Just your name, your channel, maybe like what you read. A favorite mystery thriller or horror book, or a recent favorite is what I usually ask people to share because I just like to get a feel, and everybody can get a feel for what people like. And then we'll end with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth can roll right into pitching us the book because she's our fresh meat of the live show, and that is what we force upon those people.
Happy to do it.
All right, tell us about yourself, Bree.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I was up. I think I did know I was up, but I totally forgot. Okay, so Bree is the name. I probably should have put somewhere in the thing, but Lockbooktician is my YouTube channel. What do I read? Lately, it's been a little bit of everything. Although I would like to just stay in crime fiction, this has not been a really good reading month for me. Reading year. It's just everything is lackadaisy. You know what I'm saying? No word. Everything's the L word. Shit feels like it's being reread. No one's giving me the oomph that I need. I'm feeling very disappointed, but for the most part, a recent book that I've liked was Earth Eaters. I read that on Scrib, and I thought that was pretty good. I was going to say something else, but I just realized I didn't edit that vlog that was supposed to go out today. So anyway, just choose you and live your life. And I think that was all the questions I was supposed to answer.
Thank you. I have Earth Eaters on my TBR, and now, did you like it?
Yeah.
You liked it a lot, or you liked it enough?
I liked it above enough, below a lot.
Got it.
You get what I'm saying?
No. I'm moving it up my TBR in my mind, not a lot.
Not a lot.
A few spaces.
It's intriguing. What happened is what happened kind of thing. I'm trying to not copy, but inspired by you, Caleb, of your vlog when you're like, these are all the rabbit ones. I'm trying to do one for the eaters because there's a lot of books that have eaters
or like book eaters
in the title. So hopefully that should be posted by 2030. Y'all know I'm having literally have enough footage for like 20 videos and have not edited one fucking thing. So anyway, I'm Black and I'm proud. And that's really all I can say. Living my best.
Me next? Me? Okay. All right, we'll get into the order. After this, we won't check what order we have to answer. We'll just do it. So like the first time you have to check. Okay. I'm Megan from Meg with Books. I read mostly, I'd say, like my top two genres are mystery and fantasy, but I tend to read like pretty much all genres. In terms of a favorite like mystery of this year, I think my favorite mystery this year so far was The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett, which is like a mixed media one. And it was really fun. It was like lots of threads that you have to try and connect because it's like all to interviews and stuff, and everyone's got a different perception of what happened on this night 20 years ago, and you've got to try and figure out what the truth is, and that was really fun. But yeah, I think that's me. I don't really have much. I hate introducing myself. Every time Kayla makes me do this, I'm like, what am I supposed to say? That's me.
I think you might actually be now the person who is co-hosted the most. I think with
What?
this show, that would be because I just force you to come on here and talk about yourself for 5 minutes, and I love it every time.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, that's me.
Elizabeth.
Okay, yes, my turn. Hi, I'm Elizabeth. My channel is Reading Riley, and I love horror and thriller books, some sci-fi books. I really am obsessed kind of with like the psychology of humanity, and so I feel like when I read horror, I'm able to dive into like why people behave the way they do
Come
more so
on.
than in real life. Yeah. And so that's what I love, speculative stuff. I love like thinking about like weird like multiverses and stuff like that. I just think it's fun.
Mm.
Yeah, I do a lot of like, you know, wrap ups, vlogs, things like that on my channel. I also have a book club, the Midnight Society Book Club. And yeah, one of my favorite authors, like Karen Slaughter, I love.
Come on, Kay Slaughter.
Yes, Pretty Girl, Ian Reed, I love. I really like just that, like, kind of like weird, dark stuff. So
Come on, love to see it.
that's
Also, keep an eye out for Elizabeth's book club because there might be a familiar face later in the year reading something together.
yes,
It's going to be a good one.
yes. I'm so honored to be here. So thank you so much for having me, Kayla.
Of course. Do you want to tell us about the book?
Yeah, let's talk about the book. I'm like, I should have asked you guys before I went live, like what you consider a spoiler for this, because now I'm like, I don't know what I should give away.
I
The
think
synopsis is quite vague, isn't it?
yeah, the synopsis is definitely vague.
Uh-huh.
I would keep it pretty spoiler free, just because I feel like at the very beginning, people kind of want to get a feel. We do have a good amount of people here who haven't read it, who I don't know if that means they're against reading it or if they're waiting for us to convince them. So maybe we shouldn't give too much away just in the original pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, this is a detective crime book. This is written by a Japanese author who I guess he is in Japan. He's like the Tom Clancy, the like big guy. He's written so many books. And so this was translated into English, and it's following this woman, Yasuko, who is kind of just trying to live a quiet, simple life with her daughter. And then one day her ex-husband shows up and just kind of flips her life upside down. This does have kind of like a Sherlock Holmesian vibe. It's very clever and witty as far as the plot goes. And it's one of those mysteries where you know what happens in the beginning. And then as we go on, we kind of unravel the details of how that came to be. So it's not necessarily a typical, and also like the Sherlock Holmesian aspect, it's, in my opinion, if Sherlock was the criminal mastermind. But that can be argued. So yeah, does that sum it up to you?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And then if we all want to share our rating, then I think that'll help people. Now they know what it's about, and then how did we feel about it? Maybe that'll dissuade them, or maybe it'll convince them. So this is the first time in a couple of months that I don't know anyone's thoughts, because we all, spoilers, finished this book in the last like 24 hours. So I don't know what any of you thought, and I'm so excited to find out. I know like generally what people thought in the Goodreads group and on Instagram, I've gotten a feel for it. It seems to be a lot of 4s and 3s. I haven't seen a lot of people hate it, but I haven't seen a lot of people say it's like their all-time new favorite thing. But I already see some 5 stars coming in, so that's exciting. It's great when I force you to read something you actually like. So let me know, are you on the same page? Did you like the book, or did I force you to read something a little questionable?
So I typically think the two groups of people who write horror or crime fiction well for me is Indigenous and like Japanese writers. So I tend to, and I think this author is Japanese, right?
Mhm.
And I tend to flock to their writing. I will say that at this time, I don't know my rating because it's anywhere between a 2.75 and a 4. I know that's large.
Okay.
I know that's large. I know it's large. However, when we get more into the meat, there were just certain big things that I felt like could have been done better, and I've seen done better that this book kind of lacked in. But
Mm.
I also liked parts of the book, and the ending completely pissed me off.
Oh
Oh,
yeah. I
So,
want to chat about the ending. I'm excited to
so the
chat about
ending
that.
completely pissed me off. So I know I'm here for the girls. Hey, 3 stars. But it's time for me to be honest on the internet. And I got to do what I got to do, you know?
Yeah. I gave it a 3.5. I really enjoyed the first half. I was super into the first half, and then I feel like the second half lost me a bit. I was a little bit bored in the second half. And I mean, I finished this yesterday, and I am like already kind of like that was kind of forgettable to me a little bit. You know, it feels like it was a fun read. It was quick. Like I read it quick. Not like I wasn't trying to read it fast or whatever, but like, I found it easy to read. I didn't really want to put it down, but I'm kind of like afterwards, it's a bit forgettable. It's like a summer fling, you know. I enjoyed it while it lasted, but once it's in the past, I'm kind of like I don't, you know, I'm just kind of nervous for this live show because I'm like I don't have many thoughts. I don't know what I'm going to say, but anyways, yeah, like no thoughts, head empty. No, so yeah, a 3.5 is where I think I've landed.
I think I'm kind of the opposite of you, Meg, as far as
Ooh.
like it took me a long time to get into this. In fact, I read the first
Interesting.
chapter 3 times before I was like, I don't understand. Like before I started getting interested in it, and I like kept zoning out. I was just zoning out. I was like, okay, I need to like figure out what's going on in this. And then towards the end, I got more invested. I think I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think that the plot was really, really cleverly done. But I do think that some of the character work got lost in translation. And I did watch the movie, which I would be happy to talk to y'all more about when we get into spoilers, maybe. But the movie, like the way that these characters came across, it put so many things together for me that I did not get from the book. So
interesting.
I'm thinking some of this stuff did get lost in translation there. But respect, so much respect for how this was plotted, just in general. It's very, very smart writing. So I settle on a 3.
Amazing. I'm in the same boat. I feel like my rating is similar to everybody's here. Like I didn't dislike it, I didn't love it. I think I'm landing on a 3.75 to be really specific about it. And it comes down to the same thing I say in every single live show, which is what I'm looking for in this genre is to be entertained and to be surprised. I was definitely surprised, and I was entertained about 50% of the time. I was having a good time for most of it. I was interested in everything that happened. And the twist got me. And that's going to be one of the questions later, if the twist got you. So I don't spoil that, I guess. But that's my rating. So let's get right into all of the spoilers. That means hop out if you're in the chat and you're considering reading it. Don't let it get ruined for you now. My first question for everybody is, what characters did you gravitate towards? Like, who did you find most interesting? Who did you want to read more about? So I want to run through them really quickly just to remind everybody of like names and stuff. So we have our main character. I'm just going to go by like last names. Yukawa, who is like the one who's known as Detective Galileo, who is like a physicist. He is just this really smart guy who like works with the detectives and stuff and helps solve their crimes. We have the actual detective himself, Yusanagi. If anybody did the audiobook or watched the movie, if you want to correct my pronunciations, please.
Actually, all of the names in the movie were completely changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
that's probably confusing.
It kind of was, but I think it was Kusanagi is what I did listen to the audiobook, and that's what I remember hearing.
Then we have our kind of main woman, Yusuko, and her daughter, Misato. And then the 3 men who Yasuko is involved with. We have Tagashi, who is her ex-husband, who, here's the spoilers, her and her daughter murder at the beginning of the book. At the very beginning of the book, that's what happens and kicks off everything. We have Kudo, who's a guy she's kind of dating throughout the book, who's kind of trash. And then we have Ishigami, who is her neighbor, who also went to school with those 2, the detective guys. And he's the one who is protecting her and hiding the crime that occurred. So those are all the characters.
Mhm.
I
Who
think
did you like? Who was interesting? Did I mess something up?
Ishiguro went to school with Yukawa, with the Detective Galileo guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the only change as far as like your pronunciation from the audiobook was Yasuko. They pronounced it in the audiobook Yasuko.
Oh, Yasuko. Yasuko?
Yasuko.
Yasuko. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start if y'all want.
Yeah.
I really gravitated towards Ishigami. Like he was the main character. In fact, for me, like I did not even put together the fact that this is called Detective Galileo #3, and that he's supposed to be that what's his name? Yukawa was supposed to be the main character.
Mhm.
No idea. I for sure thought this story was about Ishigami. And so when I put that together in my head, I was like, oh, that's weird because I didn't really care about Yukawa for most of the story. So yeah, Ishigami, I thought he was really interesting. I kept questioning his motives the whole time. And they really didn't explain his motives until the very, very end. So the whole time I'm like, I'm not really buying that he would do this for her. What's so special about what's her name? Yasuko. I'm like, I don't get what's so special about her. But then they kind of clarified that towards the end. But yeah, he was the most interesting character to me.
I think. Go ahead.
No, you go.
You opened it.
Okay. I don't have much to say, but my perspective reading this was I was just like rooting for Yasuko to get away with it. Like I was like, yes, kill him. Like, bless this piece of whatever. Like I hated her ex-husband. So for me, the reason I felt that the first half was more interesting because for me, the driving force of what I was enjoying reading this book was like, are they going to get away with it? Are they going to get away with it? And then I feel like in the second half, it's like, you know, the detectives start figuring things out and making some links and you start thinking, okay, maybe not. There's like, it's not going to kind of be, I just wanted her, I was like, yes, women who kill, like, woo, you know? So the reason I liked the start was because I was rooting for them. And then I feel like the second half lost that a little bit for me. But it's interesting what you say about not realizing that the Detective Galileo guy is like the kind of focus or like it's his series, because I have read some mysteries from Shashi Yokomizo, who has like this detective series, and his are in the 70s. But in the first one that was translated into English, like the detective, which I think is the first in his series, the detective character, that author, I just read that one as well. But the detective character who this has like, there's like tens of books, like 70 books something in this series. He doesn't turn up till halfway or more through the first book. So I feel like maybe it's more of like a Western thing where like Poirot and whatever, like the mystery books tend to circulate around our detective, Sherlock, whatever. Whereas maybe, I mean, this is like only the second Japanese detective series that I've read, but maybe the detectives just tend to be in the stories versus being the center point of the stories. Maybe, I don't know. That's
a good point. Yeah.
That's what I find. One of my favorite I make no bones about it, but one of my favorite mangas is Monster, and it has that feel for sure. And then a close runner-up is Moriarty, and Moriarty is fantastic, by the way. It's still running. If anybody wanted to catch up on that manga. So the question, what characters did you gravitate towards? Zero. And not in a negative way. I just was like, okay, here we go. Sometimes, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who feel this way, but sometimes a trait that an author decides to put in a character can kind of trigger you about someone in your life, and then you find yourself just fucking annoyed. I'm sorry, I shouldn't curse. You find yourself really annoyed, like, I found myself annoyed by stuff that made logical sense, but I was just so annoyed. I was like, why do you keep asking her about the damn stuff? Okay, she told you. Stop going to her goddamn house. Shit. And I was like, leave her alone. So I just kept
Yeah.
just being annoyed. Like, that's literally his job, Brie. Like, that's his job, but you're pissed at him for doing his job. And then I was like, his friend, forget the friend name. What's his name? Let's review names. The guy who covered up the murder.
Ishigami.
Ishigami.
Right. His friend is fake. His friend is fake. You supposed to die with the knowledge that your friend killed somebody. You supposed to act like you ain't never seen nothing a day in your life, and then you confide in a police officer. And then the ending, and that's what pissed me off. So I couldn't gravitate towards anyone, and I just maybe there'll be another question for the next thing I want to say, but I couldn't gravitate to any of the characters because I just felt like even though it's meant to appear that these people are a genius, and it was said to us several times that these people are some of them are genius, it still was stupid shit to me. And I was just like,
yeah.
But I love a book that gives me emotion. That's why I'm in between. I'm gonna put it down a little bit, a 2.5 to a 4-star.
Oh, the range has gotten even bigger.
We'll figure it out.
You're not moving the higher number down.
And we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I completely agree with Elizabeth, which is like, even though, okay, listen, this was my book club pick. I didn't know that Detective Galileo was Yukawa. Like, I know they called him that a couple times at the beginning, but I like didn't make the connection. Maybe I forgot it was called the Detective Galileo series or what was going on. But I thought that the detective in here, Kusanagi, was the detective and we were going to follow him every book. And I started getting less interested in that idea. And when I realized Yukawa was such a prominent character, I was like, oh, this is his series. I'm so much more interested in what's going on now. I just think it's so smart that when I picked this up, I thought it was a detective and a criminal, and we were just going to hear from those two, and it was going to be the cat and mouse game. So the fact that this author brought in Yukawa as kind of like a bystander, but is like interacting with detectives, like he feels like us, like we get to connect with him because he's a witness to all of this. People are just bringing him information. People are bringing us information. We get to solve it along with Yukawa. And I really connected with him. So I was most interested in all of his thoughts once I realized who he was and that he was actually important to the book, because it took me a minute to get there. I think also reading it physically and with the unfamiliarity of the names to me, I was mixing up characters in the first like 50 pages. Once I fully understood what was going on, I was really interested in his character.
For sure.
My next question is, what scene stuck with you most?
Oh my God.
This can be in a bad way or a good way. I'm thinking a good way because my next question is, what would you change about the book? So what's something you enjoyed about the book or a scene that stuck with you? Anything you want to share that's positive, I guess. Brie needs a minute to process.
I'm going to go straight to the end. That's why I'm looking for other people.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, I'll share mine. I feel like something that stuck with me was the moment that Yukawa put all the pieces together and he tells Kusanagi, like, don't be a detective right now, be my friend. Because also in that moment, we got like a cliffhanger, and that really like, it messed with me, but it was so fun because there was a whole chapter until we fully realized what that conversation was going to be, and that he knew what Ishigami was up to and he had kind of solved it, but the book wasn't ready to tell us that yet. So I feel like that moment was like I was reading it and I went, what are we talking about? Like, what are you about to say? And then I flipped the page and it was talking about like the woman. And I was like, oh my God, get back to what you know.
Yeah.
I felt like, okay, I'm trying to describe this succinctly. What are words? I don't know. I feel like I love it when I read a crime fiction novel and we are privy as readers to parts of the book that the people in the book are not yet privy to.
Mhm.
However, I've seen it done really well, and I've seen it done not well. This book is in between because I felt like there were things that we knew as the reader that I felt like we shouldn't have known, or it shouldn't have been flushed out a little bit better, because I felt like I wanted to be surprised, and there was not one shock for me in this book. Not one.
Really?
No. I called it every time.
Yeah.
So the thing is that for me, it doesn't matter if I catch it. Like I'm like, but if it's done in a way
Yeah.
that it's like there's an insidious plot behind it,
Yeah.
I can get behind it, and you're gonna be a 5-star for me for sure. But there were just certain things of how the book was written that just didn't do it for me, and I feel really bad because it's very rare a book written like this, because the writing was beautiful, but it's rare where a book is written like this and I'm not like dying on a hill saying this is the best shit I ever read.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, like what you were saying about like the reader being in on something that the characters are not. I tend to really like that too, but a lot of times my favorite way that authors do that is when you catch it or you're meant to catch it just before the character. And then you're like, feel like you got like a win on them, but then also you get to see them react to it. I think what you were saying earlier about, and then I'm not sure if we were referring to the same person about him being a fake friend, but what's his name? Yukawa, the Detective Galileo, and Ishigami are supposed to have been, well, okay, let me say this. In the book, they seemed to have gone to the same school, but we're just like, ships passing in the night, like not really connected. And then in the movie, they have this whole backstory where they are like really good friends in wherever that was. And they had this game where they challenge each other to who can solve the riddle, who can solve this riddle, who can solve that riddle. Also in the movie, the daughter, Misato, she develops this relationship with Ishigami as her neighbor, where they're communicating through Morse code on the wall.
Oh.
And she plays oboe, and he's like communicating with her, like he's saying like, oh, your playing's beautiful in Morse code through the wall. And so there's that connection there, which makes the ending when Misato harms herself, makes it make more sense because she has all of this weight that he is taking this credit for her. And also it makes more sense that Yukawa is kind of inserting himself into this case because this is his friend. In the book, it really seems like he's trying to make friends with him in order to insert himself into the case.
Yeah.
Like his friendship is an excuse to like get on like the inside scoop.
Yeah.
In the movie, it really seems like, hey, this is my long lost friend. I want to reconnect with you.
Yeah.
What I was talking about earlier about the character work, like that, those just little things that were in the movie really would have made me connect a lot more to these characters.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like when we got to the part of the book and the principal or someone from the school called and was like, yo, like this is what happened to your daughter. And I was like, what in the book up to that point will bring us to that conclusion? You get what I'm saying? Like I was confused on, because I just felt like I knew that 1 + 1 = 2. But in that moment, 1 + 1 = 957. And I was very confused how we got there, because if we had that information that you're talking about, those specific details in comparison the movie to the book, it would have made more sense to me, because the way the book was written, the neighbor was a stranger to old girl. She didn't know him. She didn't know that man from Applewood. You hear me? So I'm just like, there are just certain things that I just feel like there's a book, I talk about it, Out by Natsu Kirino, like the insidiousness that goes through that. Exactly. That goes through that book that is what I want. In addition to the last Miss Parrish the you being in but not really in on what's going on as the reader is what I like. So if those two books had a baby and it was somehow rearranged into different plot points in this book, it would have definitely been more enjoyable for me. I think that my rating is a 2.5.
With every question, we're gonna figure out the rating. I do feel like I will go watch the movie. I know Elizabeth was talking about it in the group chat, and I was like, oh, I just don't have time, but I really want to. So I think I will go do that, probably with Rob. But the thing with the daughter, Misato, attempting suicide or whatever was going on with that, that was the other scene that really stuck out to me, because at first I was like, this came out of nowhere. This feels kind of like convenient. Like, we didn't really get to explore her emotions throughout the book, and it just didn't feel like it fit. But at the same time, that was the only way that her mother would have gone to confess. Like, that was just her daughter being in trouble, and that guilt is the only way that we would have gotten to the ending that we got to, whether or not you like the ending or not. But it made sense in that way, because she had to have an excuse to go confess.
Yeah, that does make sense.
I would also like to point out the crime, the thinking of the crime, the coming up with possible like ways to respond to police officers when questioned, or how certain evidence disappeared, came up, whatever, in addition to using mathematics to explain how you should use logic versus just accepting things as face value, was done very well.
100%. I agree. Yeah.
I'm glad y'all understood what I said, because I
said it well.
I got a little lost myself. So
that whole connection between mathematics and like and solving a crime, and the question was the p value or something. It was like, what's more difficult?
Yes, that was the most interesting part for me.
Yeah.
And it's already gone. Like, it's gone.
What's more difficult, creating a crime that's impossible to solve, or solving that crime? What's more difficult?
Yeah,
and I think that's an interesting question.
Smart, really smart.
Yeah, because that's almost a question that goes to an author's brain as well when they're writing like a mystery book. Is like, how do I write this in a way that is impossible to solve, but still, or not impossible to solve, but difficult for the reader to completely grab all the twists, but still in a way that's like, it's not so impossible that like the reader still feels like they are solving it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just reading through everybody's favorite scenes now.
I think the murder scene was mine. I feel like this book was like, between the murder scene and the end, it's like a lot of conversations. I'm not saying that's bad, but like, I feel like they were done well, but I was just kind of like, I mean, what were the scenes? They're just like, give me your ticket stubs, or I don't know. Like, it was just that over and over again, I felt like.
Yeah, it was. I felt like the ending though was sad. The ending was so sad.
It was sad. I would have been so pissed that I sacrificed my life for you, and then they question you a little bit and you fold.
You fold.
Mm-hmm. You ain't made for the streets. You ain't made for the streets. They question you a little bit and you fold like a goddamn omelet.
She lasted so long too.
And that whole time we don't really see that she's really grappling with him taking the fall for her.
Yeah, it's like a little bit. She's like questioning it. She feels bad, but then also she's like going on a date. She's like hanging out.
Lunchboxes. I like the lunchbox shop. I thought it was like, I don't know. I like the lunchbox shop. Yeah, nice vibes.
Okay, what would you change about the book? Okay,
I have questions, guys. I'm not sure. I don't know if we want to get into this yet, but I have a question I want to raise. Okay. Oh no. This is link. I don't want you to move on, but like this is like lingering questions plus what would I change combined. Okay. This is like the same. Okay. Why did he have to like kill this whole other guy when he seemingly did a really good job of disposing of the body, wiping the room for prints? Like what? Like, and they're like, oh, he did it because the body would have turned up at some point. But like, there's a lot of animals in the sea. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's getting found. Like,
I have an answer for that.
okay,
It's very psychological in nature, though.
okay.
So, for those who don't know, I have a master's in forensic psychology, so I'm often thinking about people who perpetuate or commit crimes. In my mind, he already made up that he was going to end his life. And what a perfect way to do it. By committing a crime and seamlessly helping your neighbor commit a crime, but you're still ending your life, but in a way that is like, you don't feel like you're wasting your life. You're going to prison. He already talked about all the different things he was going to do, how he can be devoted to his work, how much he didn't really enjoy being a teacher, and how he just really likes solitude. So to him, it felt like a win-win. It felt like, I'm going to help this woman cover up this crime. And not only I'm going to help her cover up a crime, I'm going to also commit a crime that's related, that will have me intrinsically entangled in the situation. Therefore, I'm going to have to confess to this crime. So instead of leaving my life completely, I'm going to help this woman who helped me by knocking on the door. And I'm also going to fulfill that need of not wanting to be a part of the world anymore and go to prison for the rest of my life.
Wow.
That is all. That all makes sense to me, except for the fact that if for that to be true, he is saying that he's justifying, like, giving up his life for the sake of this person, which makes him feel better, but in the process, taking someone else's life who is completely innocent. Like that would have to mean that he, I guess, values her life more than this other person, so much so that he's willing to just dispose of this person's life.
Yep.
And
yep.
So she saved his life, but he's just going to throw it away anyway in prison.
But I don't think to him it was throwing his life away.
Yeah, it was a sacrifice he was making for her.
A sacrifice he was making. Yeah. And we already knew that people who tend to be ruled by logic can make sense of anything. So him making sense of, and I say not like rule majority, by logic, can make sense of anything. So to him, and whatever calculations he did in his brain, committing a crime and putting the police officers into only to pick up certain breadcrumbs that would be focused on this crime, it will take them off of that crime. So that, I feel like that was a part of him trying to pay her back, but he already talked about all these things he was going to do locked up anyway. And then him and his friend, who they do math together, I forget the Sherlock guy, have already talked about like what he's capable of doing. And I also think that when he realized that his neighbor, who he's fawning over anyway, killed someone, he looked at it as a mathematical problem, not like essentially horny over it. It's in a way, because that happens. A lot of people who have antisocial or devious personality traits. So I think that's part of it. I think all of that made it more beautiful in a way to me. But I don't know the true intentions of the author, so I'm not going to pretend here and say that I do.
I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said, and like, but the one thing that is just like holding me back is that, yes, if he's so logical, and they repeated that over and over, he's so logical, and so he's taking these steps, and it makes sense as far as furthering the plot goes. But the disparity, I feel like there's like a gap between the idea of carrying through with covering this up and then him standing there hammering a guy's face in. Like, I didn't see him as antisocial. I saw him as, depressive and very smart, but like, I just can't see his character hammering a guy's face in.
Mm.
I
And
get that. I get that.
that.
I get that. For
Yeah.
me, the antisocial traits was the fact that he had the ability to bang somebody's face in. That's a very personal way of killing someone. That tells me that there may be some lack of empathy there. So that you did that and you took the time to remove or burn. I forget how he got rid of the.
He burned them, I think.
Yeah.
So all of that, like that, you taking time with a body. So that so those in those specific moments is where I put the depressive for sure. This man was ready to end it all.
Oh yeah.
I'm so interested to see the movie to see if it like how things just look different, how it makes you feel different. Because this book didn't make me feel a lot. It didn't bring up the emotions, which I feel like is really common for me with Japanese thrillers. It's just the way that the style that they're written in isn't meant to make you feel like close to anybody and get their thoughts. It's more like what they're saying and how they're coming across. So I'm also interested to see if like the movie kind of colors my perspective on these characters. Like, will I not be able to distinguish them from one another after I watch?
It definitely affected the way I saw the entire book. And it is what it's, it's got English subtitles, so you really have to pay attention because it's fast too. So it's not one that you could like mess around on your phone. You have to like watch, So it definitely takes some effort. But the cinematography is beautiful. It's really gorgeously done.
You giving high praise. I really want to see. I can't see the movie today. Got things to do and all, but definitely want to see the movie because I love the way the crime was written. I really think that was a highlight of the book. So I would love to see how it translates through cinematography.
For me, this is an instance where the adaptation was better than the book.
Whoa, that's praise.
The thing that I would change is I think the murder itself. I think that there would be the opportunity for more twists and turns and reveals if we didn't fully know what happened in the murder scene. Because then we could question if Ishigami actually did it. And I think that would be a fun aspect, that maybe halfway through the book, we find out Ishigami didn't do it. And it was the mom and the daughter. And then later on, we find out that he was covering everything up. So maybe there was because I do think it was slow. And I know that people's main critique is that it dragged on and it was a lot of repetitive scenes. I did like the discussions and I liked the constantly like back and forth trying to figure out what happened and trying to solve it, even though we already knew it. Like I was liking all of it, but I wanted just like a twist in the middle would have been great. A twist before the big twist would have made it like a 4.5, even 5-star.
Well, I thought there was going to be a twist in the middle when he writes that letter to her saying, oh, you have to stop seeing him or I'm going to kill you both, basically. And I would have liked that maybe, I don't know, I expected the book to go in a different direction from that point and it didn't end up doing it. Do you know what I mean?
That was kind of a twist for me, yeah, because I was like, oh, he's a bad guy. but he was like, he's writing the letter in his head the whole time that you must betrayed me. And I'm like, oh shit, is she gonna?
I could never figure out at any point if he was being genuine or not. Like I had so many questions up until the very end. If all of these scenes, the internal monologue, the letters, if all of it or any of it was truthful, if all of it was a front, like, especially because we got that letter when he wrote it in his head and then they put it again in the book as a real letter that he sent, the exact same letter. So I was like, it must be his real thoughts. But it also is there to like show that he was a stalker, but he's pretending to be a stalker, but he is a stalker.
Right.
Like it was a little too much for me.
Did any of y'all feel that the mom actually may have tricked him into getting rid of the body? Was that just me? It looks like it's just me. That look, y'all.
I felt like he was quite willing.
Because I felt like because I was like, maybe because I've read books like that where it's like, oh, I'm in distress. Oh, I didn't know that you could not hear me. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, he told me to do all of this, but actually, I knew that my neighbor would hear me kill him and would come over and help me because he's infatuated with me. because there was too much emphasis in the beginning of the book on people trying to get her to recognize that this man is attracted to her. And her consistent denial of it made me think maybe she'd been plotting. And I'm also thinking about a person who becomes a victim or survivor, whichever term resonate with you, of like spousal abuse. You got to get the fuck out of there. You got to put you first. You got to protect your kid. So I wouldn't have been mad at her if that's what it turned out to be. But that's what I was thinking it was going. Got a little sad that we didn't go there, but here we are.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
have her be equally manipulative would have been an interesting reveal.
Yeah.
My question is, did you see the ending coming? Brie, I want to hear from you because you did. Did you? Because you said nothing was surprising. So, at what point did you think he killed a whole nother human to cover it up?
So I didn't think he killed a whole nother human.
Okay.
I was like not surprised that is where his logic took him to.
Got it. Okay.
Same.
The whole time, the way his mind were, I said, "Oh, okay, that part
That
of it,
checks out.
that checks out."
Yeah.
The moment that I knew she was going to turn herself in is the moment old dude started talking to her and her posture changed visibly. I was like, "Yeah, she's turning herself in."
All right. got
Yeah.
it.
I agree with the ending. Like when I read it, I wasn't like, oh, I he switched the timeline and whatever. Like I hadn't caught on to that, but I wasn't like, oh my god, gag. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, okay, like I felt the exact same way, and that's why it felt the ending felt a bit anticlimactic for me because yes, I didn't predict that he'd killed a whole other guy, but like it didn't surprise me, and I feel like I want that end twist to not necessarily like it. You can expect an end twist to like, okay, that checks out with what that character could do. But there's that element of like, oh my god, wow, that I didn't feel like that end twist had, personally.
See, I audibly gasped.
At all.
Really?
The other
I was
body.
like,
No, not see that. Nope, not at all.
I turned to that page and they were like, he killed another person. I was like, he did? I was like, no, he didn't.
Me, I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Like it makes sense, sure, in retrospect, but never in my wildest imagination did I come up with that. And I love thinking about what's going to happen. I feel like this book didn't really, because I knew there was a twist at the end, because everyone talks about how it's slow and it's a procedural, and then there's a big twist. Like I knew there was a twist, and I wish that I hadn't known that. I just have to hop into this question. Do you feel like you were missing out with this being book 3 in a series? I just feel like
I didn't even realize it was a series until this moment.
Well, here's the thing. This is the first one that was translated into English. So it is the third book. And so you get to know Yukawa in the first 2 books. And he's like the person the detectives are coming to. And they are, he's working with them because he's so smart and he's a physicist and whatever. So he's always like a side character, but is a main character in the books. But this is the first one that got translated to English, and there's 3 more that did out of like the 10 or 20 book series or whatever. But what I was thinking when I finished it was, how fun would it have been? Because from what I understand, the first 2 books are just traditional, like whodunit mysteries where there's a detective and he solves it. How crazy would it have been to read those 2 and just think you're reading a regular detective series, and then this happens? And then you know the crime from the beginning and you're like, what are we doing? And then you get the twist. That would have been such a fun experience. And I'm jealous for the people who got to have that.
Yeah, I think that would have been a more fun way to read it, because I think I would have been more surprised by the ending had I had that experience up to that point, because you view it in a different lens. You view it in the more traditional mystery lens, and then for a book in the same series to break out of that is more exciting for me versus coming to this book just as it is. I think I expected some level of what it did,
Yeah. I love a mystery or thriller, whatever, horror that's got some wild shit going in. I just appreciate it. And I think for this book also is that I worked in incarcerated facilities before I started the work that I do now. So I've heard and seen some things as a therapist. So I was just like, oh, okay. That's what I felt like. But I can understand how you guys are like, what? You know what I mean? Because I was just like, yeah. Tracks.
Well, you are so interesting to me, Brie. I want to like know all the things.
We can chat
Oh,
later.
I know we've been here for a while, so I think I'm actually, unless anybody has anything else they want to bring up or mention or ask, I'm going to head into the last question, which is just like recommendations. If you have any similar book or movie recs, because I specifically have people here who are familiar with Japanese thrillers, especially. So if you have anything that compares, because I really do not. I pulled Confessions because like this was a book club pick before. It's a Japanese thriller. This is not similar in any way, but I feel like they get put on lists together, you know, and it's not. This is not a similar book at all. So, but that's like the only example that I have. So I need someone else to give some actual recommendations. I have these ones because they're on my TBR. That's the only reason these are sitting next to me.
I want to warn you about Out though. There is every trigger warning. Just think of it is in that book.
Okay, that usually means I want to read it more when I hear that.
If you like, oh, I didn't think I would be triggered by it. Just a content warning. Like I said, if the word trigger moves with you or the word content works, whatever works, that book has everything in it. Okay. And it was done really well for me. In addition to Moriarty that I was talking about earlier, and also Monster, how that emphasis on the crime and that knowing that there is a detective, but he's not really like main and center. There's other parts of the crime that needs to be flushed out. For sure on those. I just have a bunch of manga in my mind. So anyone else can go.
I do have one recommendation that is not similar in any way other than one specific way, and that is The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier. And that is because this is another one where you know what's happened, you know who the killer is, like from the very beginning, and then you work back. And before I read this, I was like, that does not sound good to me. Like, I want the mystery. But the way that this author and Jennifer Hillier both do it, it makes it so interesting to try to figure out not the who, but the why and the how. And so, yeah, I think if you liked that aspect of it, you should check this one out as well.
For sure. And Creep has that. Have you read Creep by Jennifer Hillier?
I haven't read this. I haven't read Freak yet, but I've read Creep. Yes.
Yeah, Creep has some of those elements as well. And then someone in the chat talked about the Decacon House murders, which I thought was beautifully done. Oh my God.
Does it have like a blue hand on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe, but it gave round of goddamn applause. It was good.
Noted.
My only recommendation would probably be Sashi Yokomizo is the author of, like, he's the one that you held up. That's the Inugami Curse. I think I preferred the Honjin Murders, which is the first one. I think both in Japanese and English, and then I think they've translated maybe 5 into English now.
Oh my God, I thought this was the first one.
No, that's the second. That's the second one they translated. But out of the 5 they've translated now, it's like the latest it's like the latest published in the series. So it's quite far into the series. But it's similar in that it has a detective, but who the story doesn't orbit around. I would say it has similar kind of distance to the characters, like the kind of like the way that the characters are written is quite similar. But Sashi Yokomizo is old, like the books are older, I think 1970s maybe. So I mean, I think he spanned quite a long time writing, but they are older. But the Honjin Murders for me is still one of the craziest like explanations for how a murder occurred in any murder mystery book I've ever read. Is absolutely bonkers. But I really like Sashi Yokomizo, so that'd probably be my recommendation.
Can you write that in the chat?
Let me go on YouTube.
Dyslexia and me, we're best friends, and we don't always know how to spell things out. I will say this was a good pick, though, Kayla. Don't let my 2.5 get you down. But this was a good pick. I'm ready to be excited for the next one, whichever it may be.
I think it was kind of a a different vibe, and I'm always trying to make sure we're doing totally different things. Like this year, we've had a horror, a thriller, this mystery, which is so unlike anything I've ever read before, a cozy mystery. Like it's been an interesting year. This is a really interesting recommendation, and I completely agree. Miracle Creek by Angie Kim it's more of like real life. There's some drama, but also there is a death that occurs, and you kind of know at the beginning what happened, and you are solving it. So that's so interesting. I definitely didn't think of that in the same vein, but it is. So, and I love Miracle Creek.
I have now got it on my Libby. I need to be wild.
I think this is also an interesting book to have read right now because it's in between like a horror and now we're going to have a really wild thriller, I think. So if you don't know, in the month of July, we're reading The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is the fourth Riley Sager in 4 years. I'm a Riley Sager fangirl. I know everyone always talks about how it's a hit or a miss. There's only been one miss for me. So I'm a Riley Sager girl. I'm in the club.
Here's the thing. I always say with Riley Sager, if you like it or you love it or hate it, you're gonna have an opinion and you're gonna have like kind of a fun time. Even if you hate it, like you're kind of still gonna have a fun time. I think.
Let Riley go.
Listen,
let Riley.
He's been like chased off the internet. I think he's like, this is his last book he's publishing, or the next one. Like he's like, I'm done with everyone hating on me. He's like, I'm leaving. Peace.
There's something.
Good riddance, sir.
There's always a part of me. Oh, there's always a part of me that's like, run this book club with the most just like generally appealing books that most people are going to like, and it's just going to be a good time. And then there's the part of me that always comes in that's like, pick something you just want to read that people might hate, but it's going to be a fun conversation. So that's where I lean. My book club's a little unique in that way, that I just pick some odd things that I force people to read, and sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it doesn't, but I appreciate you all being here for that.
I have not asked you to read another Riley.
I'm glad that you were on board for this one. The thing about, a lot of my friends here who co-host so kindly they're just down to read whatever. Like this wasn't even on some of your TBRs, and you were just like, yeah, let's do it. So I love that, and I appreciate you for being here. And I'm gonna end this so you can get on with your day. Thank you everybody for commenting. I always come back to the live shows after and I look through your comments because I'd like to read more of your thoughts. There is always the Goodreads group that's open. The Riley Sager conversation will be open in just a couple days, so you can start discussing the book as you're reading it. And with that, I'll see you next month.